103. This is the Dave Jamieson Show. I'm Matt Awanek. On the other side of glass is Hernan Salas. Glenn Suter of TSN will join us momentarily. Coming up at 2 o'clock, it is the Jason Gregor Show with Gregor, Jason Strudwick, and Connor Halley. And Connor loading up on some NFL guests today. At 2:05, Chuba Hubbard, Carolina Panthers running back and Edmontonian. He'll be on with Gregor. Like I said, that's right at the start of their show at 2:05. And then at 5 o'clock, Christian Covington. He's a L.A. Charger defensive tackle. He'll be on at 5. So a couple big NFL guests coming up from 2 until 6 on the Jason Gregor Show. Well done by Connor Halley in booking those two guests. Also on the show, Rashog and Tom Gazzola. Gazzola earlier today tweeting out that he has eyes and ears from Rogers Place. He heard there's an informal skate continuing today, and the Oilers playing, taking part at least, were McDavid, Draisaitl, Nurse, Nuge, Hyman, Puljujarvi, Cassian, Russell, Bouchard, Broberg, Shore, and Torres. Tal Ennis, who's a UFA, he's also skating with the group, but no Yamamoto. Let's talk some Canadian Football League now as Glenn Suter of TSN joins us. And Glenn, let's look back on Labor Day Monday with the Elks defeating the Calgary Stampeders for the first time on Labor Day Monday since 2011. This was their first game after their win against BC. They then had that COVID situation. Were you at all surprised with how well they played after such a long and weird break?
I wasn't surprised, but I was curious as to how they would come out of that. And I felt when you read the headlines and they had to release a player and Jacob Ruby, and there was all that was going on that was off the field, and it could have easily pulled that locker room apart. But I think full credit has to go to Coach Elizondo and his leaders, his captains on that team, Trevor Harris being one of them, that basically kept it together. And it even looked like it galvanized their team rather than rip it apart. And it could have easily. I mean, I've been thinking that is a possibility in any locker room across the league with the vaccination discussion and unvaccinated and all of that. I think that is as an issue right now that could divide a locker room and could get players sort of begrudging other players. And I thought that was very possible for the Edmonton situation, and I wasn't surprised. I was just more curious, because if I say I was surprised, it meant that I assumed that they would, just fall apart in the locker room, and I didn't think that. I wasn't sure. I just thought it's possible, so let's see how they play. But they came out with great focus, even when things went wrong. I mean, even when they, Calgary made some plays and grabbed some momentum, no problem. They kept their cool, for the most part, even though it was Labor Day. Labor Day, there will be tempers flaring a little bit. But, for the most part, kept their composure when they had to and did what they needed to get a huge win, a massive win based on their last 2 weeks. Yeah, I full credit. And that James Wilder run, that's as good as it gets. That's why we love pro football. When it was 6 minutes to go, 10-yard line, if Calgary gets a 2-and-out right there, they probably win the game. They hand it to James Wilder, and he gets 29 yards with the entire Calgary defense on his back, and he drags them for all 29. I mean, those are plays of the week moments right there.
Well, and James Wilder, it seems like now through 4 games, he's much closer to that player that he was in his rookie season than the seasons after. It's not even just that run, which it felt like it was longer than 29 yards.
Yeah.
But even the touchdown, catch that he had just prior to that, he had to shake off a Stampeder, and it could have easily been a stop short. But he found his way to fight through and get into the end zone. But he's looked really good this year for the Elks in all the games.
Yeah, I keep hearing this sort of rumor out there that there was an issue with James Wilder as a teammate, and I never heard that personally. I never heard that from his former teammates in Toronto or anywhere that he's played. I have heard that rumor of late, but I will say this, that when Coach Elizondo brought him in and said, "You're going to be one of our team captains," I think for young amateur coaches that may be listening right now, that's a way. If you know he is capable of leading and being a leader on your team, being a captain on your team, then giving him that designation really empowers the athlete to just take full responsibility for that role. And, I think if there was any sort of lack of complete focus from James Wilder in the past, and again, I didn't see that personally, but I did see his production drop like everyone else. So I think people are putting one and two together, and to have Coach Elizondo, I think, step in and say, not only do we want you on our team, but we also want to make you one of the captains of our team. And that, I think, can really empower an athlete, and probably has done what James said. He doesn't want to let anybody down on that team. He's a leader by example, and I'm sure very vocal in the room too, because he can put together a sentence or two. And, I just think it's great to see. It really is, because as a rookie, I used to think there were times when he'd run the ball, it was kind of men against boys, because he's that good.
With Glenn Suter of TSN, the Elks, they also add Derek Moncrief to the linebacking core, signing him after he spent last year in the National Football League. How big of an addition is that to the Elks defense?
Yeah, I like it because we know he's a great linebacker. And, I think what happens sometimes when a team signs a player that nobody knows yet, like maybe coming straight out of college, or a guy who was, down in the NFL for a while, but we don't know his name necessarily, and he comes up, then people go, well, he's just another guy. But they're all great athletes. They don't make it to, the roster or signing a contract at the pro level without being a great player, a great football player. The difference here is we know Moncrief, and we know that he knows the game. And he doesn't have to make, a 3 or 4 game adjustment to understand, even the yard off the ball, the timing on blitzes, how the run game develops when he's stopping the run as a linebacker, different than it would when you're playing American rules. So I think that's where we all know he's a known entity, an all-star caliber player, and he's now in the Elks lineup. So that's he'll have to do his protocol, but he's going to be in the Elks lineup, and that's a huge signing.
Glenn Suter of TSN with us here. The Calgary Stampeders, they're now 1-4 this year, which is not something that we're used to seeing with the Calgary Stampeders. Jake Maier, though, has looked great through 3 games. They've had every chance of winning every time he's been out there. He won the first one, but losing the last 2. Although in his short 14-game season, it seems like this is a must-win on Saturday against the Elks, because I don't feel like you can drop to 1-5 and find a way to recover with where everyone else is right now in the West.
No, but I look at this Calgary team and I see, okay, so game 1 they lose by 3 points, to Toronto. Then they go and play BC. They lose by 6. So both games 1 possession. They beat Montreal by 1 possession, 6 points, and then, lose to Winnipeg by 2. So, and now the Elks was the first time that it turned out to be, with that deep ball near the end of the game after the Wilder run, it turned out to be more than 1 possession. But again, if your team is losing or winning by 1 possession, then and when I say 1 possession, of course you know what I'm talking about, but 7 points or less. So in 1 possession, you can either tie or win the game. Again, I think this came down to that 6 minutes left, Elks on their own 10-yard line, 4-point game at the time, and Wilder has the big run, the big deep ball for the touchdown, and game over. But had Calgary made the stop there, that might be in a different outcome. So I look at Calgary and I say, no, they're not there. They're not there yet. They're not the team that we've known in the last 6 to 8 years coming out of Calgary, but they're not far off either. They get that defensive stop, different outcome possibly, and I don't want to take anything away from the Elks. They earned that win, top to bottom, all 3 phases. But I just don't think the Calgary Stampeders are that far off. And Jake Maier played well enough to get the W in the 2 games he hasn't.
You were doing the game on Sunday with the Bombers taking on the Riders out in Saskatchewan, the Bombers getting the win. What was your biggest takeaway from that game?
Well, I still think the Bombers have the best defense in the league. And, I was reluctant to actually give them that sort of, designation because we had such a small sample size. You only have 2 or 3 games. You're saying, okay, well, maybe they've played real good in 2 games, and that let's look at the other defenses. Hamilton has some pretty good personnel, that kind of thing. But now I've seen them 4 or 5 games here, and they are the best defense in the league and have the best defense. So, based on that and the triangle that is Adam Big Hill, Jackson Jeffcoat, and Willie Jefferson, those guys on the edges with Kongbo as a rotation player there, and then the way that Adam Big Hill's playing, I think any team that plays the Bombers, that's the goal and objective. How do you neutralize that defense? Calgary did a pretty good job when they went over there, and in Winnipeg didn't get the win, but they played pretty well. Jake Mayer threw for over 300 yards on that defense, so it's possible. You just have to look at that video and figure it out. But the one thing I'll add too, and I'm not sure if this is public yet, but that game on Labor Day Sunday, I haven't had the numbers for the back-to-back Monday games, but the ratings for Labor Day Sunday were almost 1 million viewers. And just a big thank you to CFL fans. I know they're enjoying the return to play here because our numbers have been up 30-40% as far as ratings go, and to get 1 million, I mean, to put that in perspective, most national hockey games are getting 200 to 400,000 on average. Soccer in our country, and this is not trying to take a shot at soccer by any stretch, but soccer is drawing 50 to 100,000 viewers per game, and we are well over 500,000 per game on the season, and that Labor Day Sunday got over 1 million. So, or excuse me, just under 1 million, 990,000 or something. So, it's a testament to how much we love our game and how much people love the CFL in our country. And I just want to bring it up because, I think this is not a time to be humble when it comes to the popularity of our sport.
Well, absolutely. And I know it was on Twitter yesterday. It was 985 or something like that. And I'm assuming that doesn't even include RDS numbers or something like that. So, or U.S. numbers. So that's easily over 1 million eyeballs or people watching that. It's funny because every time, sometimes we get in debate and people will throw out their debate with listeners or something, and they'll throw out that the CFL's dead or it's dying. And then you sit there and you see these numbers, you go, it's not dying. There's still interest. The problem the CFL has, though, like the thing that they need to just figure out is how do you get some of those million people to get to the stadiums? Because once you figure that out, CFL's alive and well.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about people in-house, again, with single game betting and things like that off your phone, and you could be at a game and betting on your phone and prop bets and things, that's going to probably create some enthusiasm about going to the park. But I also think we have to have realistic expectations here when it comes to in-house crowds, because I think our country is 25,000 is a really good crowd for a sporting event. I mean, keep in mind that every hockey game, even if it's sold out in our country, and this is our big sport, hockey's number one, as we all know, but you're only getting 18,000 in those buildings, and not all of them are sold out. Not every Oilers game, not every Flames game or Canucks game is sold out. And Ottawa, their Senators, their attendance is abysmal. I mean, it's not good at all. So, I just think we got to keep that in perspective as well, that across the whole spectrum of sports and entertainment, there's a lot of work to be done on bringing people back to the park, especially in the COVID now new world, to make it safe and people feel comfortable and all of that, to get them back to the park. But if you're getting over 20,000, those are good crowds now. And the Edmonton days of 40,000 people, I don't think that's realistic anymore in society. I really don't. I think we look at good models, good business models with 25,000, massive TV numbers. Just to put it in perspective, 985,000 viewers is more than we get for anything in the regular season on TSN. Anything. I mean, that, if that happens in other sports, I think there's parades going down the street. So I just want to say, I know as Canadians humility is a strength for us, but I don't think we should be humble. I think we should trumpet when we have big numbers, and those were big numbers on Labor Day. I haven't got the Monday numbers yet, but I'm assuming they'll be huge too.
And just before I let you go here too, it's what makes it also impressive when you look at everything that was also on Sunday. This wasn't a quiet sports weekend. Labor Day weekend was jam-packed with all sorts of sports, whether it be tennis, whether it be NCAA football, golf. Like, there was a lot going on.
Golf, yep.
Absolutely. So to get 1 million people on a busy weekend, it's great to see. Glenn, I really appreciate the chat. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Glenn Suter of TSN there. If I'm not mistaken, I think Hockey Night in Canada, the 2 games, I believe the early 5 o'clock game gets over 1 million people for CBC/Sportsnet on a regular basis. And you're dealing with Toronto, usually a Toronto game, or the Habs. But I believe that one gets generally over 1 million. The late game, which is the game that's played out west, I believe is somewhere around 600 to 700. So if you break it down, if you just want to break it down to the marquee, a football, if you want to go to the one hockey, the big night for hockey in Canada, the CFL matches up rather well, and CBC is more accessible than TSN as well. That's how impressive that 985 is. I know Dustin was shocked when he saw that number because he was doing the call. He's Hernan Salas. I'm Matthew Wannick. When we come back, we'll get into the inbox at 10-12-60. You're listening to the Dave Jamieson Show on Edmonton Sports Leader, TSN 1260. Sometimes there's a lot of fun happening off air. I was chatting with Connor and Hernan in another room, and Hernan had to go. The music's playing. We're up. Had to run into the studio. Welcome to the Dave Jamieson Show. Welcome back. I'm Matthew Wannick. Getting into the inbox here right away at 10-12-60. Reminder.
I wish we could just leave the music playing throughout the whole segment, just kind of like low.
Well, minute 15. We get a minute 15 too.
I know. I'm just saying, like.
Yeah, we won't get into
something
that.
We can look into.
No. I know what it would require for us to be able to play more, and I'll tell you, it'll be our last day as a station. If that's the case. I know. Chuba Hubbard, a reminder, he's coming up at 2:05 with Jason Gregor. If you don't know who Chuba Hubbard is, he's an Edmontonian. He's playing for the Carolina Panthers. Was drafted, was it 3rd round this year? What round was Chuba drafted in? Why don't I remember?
4th round, Connor.
4th round, 126th overall, and then
126th overall.
Christian Covington, Chargers defensive tackle. He'll be on at 5 o'clock on the Jason Gregor Show. Reg. Suits is on glue. Elk should have 40,000 a game. The game experience has gotten boring over the last decade. Make it a party with a football game going on. I agree to make it a party with a football game going on. But I also agree with Glenn that right now with where the Canadian Football League is, it's a 20,000 attendance. That's kind of where this league has gone to. And it makes me sad because when I was first going to Elks games in the early 2000s, 35,000 was a preseason football game. Legit. And it was 40,000 plus was home games. And it ended kind of in 06. I always will go to, I think that 06 Oilers playoff run, it really elevated the Oilers to another tier here in Edmonton. And then the Elks missed the playoffs for the first time in 35 years. And they just haven't been able to recover since. And there's now this before, I felt like Oilers weren't that much ahead of the Edmonton Elks. And
you're smiling because I think we both saw the same text.
Yeah. She was from Sherwood Park, not an Edmontonian. Put some respect on her name. Sorry to Sherwood Park. Sherwood Park.
Not Uke.
No, I know. I would know Uke if he texted in. So apologies to everyone in Sherwood Park. Edmonton and area. He's from our area. But it makes me sad to know that the CFL isn't going to be a 40,000 seat league anymore. The one spot I will disagree with, Glenn, is you can't compare it to hockey.
No.
I know that there's 18,000 or whatever it is that get to Rogers Place for the Oilers, but you're also dealing with 41 home games as opposed to 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Again, that does factor in mightily. It's, baseball games, there's 81 a year that teams have to host. Obviously, there's going to be games with big attendances. There's going to be games with very little. You can't compare the two in that sense, just because, committing to 9 games as opposed to committing to 41, it is much different. But I do agree that we're probably in a 30,000 seat league now. Where if you built this new stadium, that's probably what you need.
I'm curious to see the attendance for Saturday. I truly am.
Me too. That's the game also, though, where, if I'm not mistaken, if you're under 18, you get in for free.
Oh, really?
I believe that's the thing that they have for this one. So not full on like it used to be when we were kids, where it was if an adult buys a ticket, they can bring the kid for free. I think anyone under 18 can go for free. Andrew the Mailman, CFL's run into the TV dilemma. The TV product is honestly much better than the field product. You just can't see every play. No announcers, no replay, really. To me, 20 to 25,000 is pretty great. Other sports, plain and simple, way too many games that it just doesn't matter at all. I go 1 to 3 times a year. I'll see Leafs play the Oilers, go Jays. World Cup qualifier, if it happens, hell yeah, I'll go. But time and time again, how much support should I show for tax-cutting, price-raising, threatening owners? That comes in from Andrew, the Mailman. And that is I will go with the Elks, with where they are in the city in terms of love. If it's $50 to get you into the stadium, just to get you in, that doesn't include getting drinks. That doesn't include getting any food or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you just sit at home, get some pizza, buy some beer, buy or whatever drinks you want, and watch it? Because TSN does do a really good job, I believe, when it comes to the games. It's great coverage. So that is the problem there, where it's the in-game experience. It isn't anything special. To what Reg said, you've got to find a way to make it a party atmosphere. The TV's one thing, but if you make it a thing where no one wants to miss the party and there's a football game happening on, then yeah, people will show up. But the question is, how do you do that?
The complaint department's in. We keep getting chirped for not talking about Leila Fernandez and Felix Auger-Aliassime. Then we spent a lot of time in the opening segment. But just looking ahead, they both get the number 2 seed now on to
Leila's tomorrow, Felix is on Friday.
I mean, how cool would it be though, if Maddie both find a way into the final? Because listen, even the semifinal's great. Like whatever happens in these matches tomorrow and the day after that. I mean, what Leila Fernandez did, when you have Magic Johnson tweeting about you, like it's huge. And Felix Auger-Aliassime, he's working his way into becoming one of the, he's cracking that, where he's becoming into that top 10, right? Like, he's playing some great tennis. His serve is outstanding. And he's just and I just love the way they speak after their matches. Like, it's just, they're so humble. They're so nice. I absolutely love it. And I hope Shapo can find a way to break through as well. I know we all remember that Nadal match, and then we talked about it yesterday a lot, about Bianca. Like, she's right there with the best of the best if she can stay healthy.
Milos Raonic, to me, was the best singles player. It was better than Eugenie Bouchard, obviously. And the thing with Raonic, as Canadians, I should say, it seemed like he had a serve, but he didn't have the rest of the game, really, to be an elite tennis player. And we saw him get to a final, but it was his serve.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the 4, the 2 women and the 2 men, Felix, Dennis, Bianca, Leila, all 4 of them seem to have very complete games, very rounded games, and then they could play in so many different ways. They have serves, they have the great forehands, backhands. When you look at it, Leila's 19. She's in her first semifinal of a major. She's going to be back. Bianca needs to stay healthy, and she'll be great. She'll be one of the greats.
Yeah.
She'll be a consistent contender every year, every major. She just has to find the health factor. When it comes to the men, we had both Dennis and Felix get to the quarters at Wimbledon. Dennis got to the semi where he took on Djokovic, and that match was, as Djokovic is great. Djokovic may go down as the greatest tennis player of all time. But in that match, and I'm not trying to disrespect Djokovic in any way, shape, or form, Shapo had a lot of unforced errors. I remember watching that. I was in the studio watching, and Yaremchuk was on the other side, and it was one I looked at it at the end and went, Shapo could have won that match.
Mm-hmm.
He could have walked away defeating Novak Djokovic, and he's only 22. There's a lot to learn from that, and that's a good learning experience. That when it comes to those 4, I think we just have to get used to when we're talking about the majors. When we get to the second week and we're getting to the quarters and the semis and the finals, get used to be talking about Canadians. Get used to talking about these 4, because they will be there. We'll have someone there with the way they're playing.
And I think we all have to remember that you just threw out their age. Like, Shapo 22, Felix 21,
Bianca's 21.
19, 21. And we see them sometimes and we get frustrated because they let a game slip or whatever, but they're still so damn young, Maddie. And I think we forget that. Now, for Bianca, it's a health thing.
Yeah.
She can't stay healthy. All 3 other Canadians, they're just playing well, and they're surprising everyone. Like, it's great to see the American broadcast just talk how good the Canadians have been doing, and kind of this golden generation that's coming up. And it's something that growing up we never saw either. Like you said, Milos, Nestor, who was always the doubles king.
It was only Nestor for me.
Yeah, and then Jeannie Bouchard she had her run. Things haven't worked out for her. The same thing with Milo's one final, but things haven't worked out. And then you've seen this core group of these four, two on the women's, two in the men's, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I mean, it's going to be even the numbers now, hey, for U.S. Open to see the Canadians in the semifinals, Maddie. It's going to be amazing. We were both working the day Bianca won the U.S. Open, and we couldn't believe it. It was just unreal for a Canadian to win the U.S. Open.
Well, we've never seen it. And honestly, I never thought. And we were talking about this Bruce Arthur yesterday. I truly never thought I would see Canadians be successful in tennis. I never thought we'd see a major champion, and we saw Bianca do it. And again, if she's healthy, she will do it again. I think she's more likely when healthy. I still think she's the best of the four.
I'm with you, yeah.
When you look at things on the women's side, you know, Serena was dominant for so long, and now she's getting up there in years, and she's dealt with, you know, having a child and then coming back and trying to deal with that. There hasn't been that person dominating tennis. You know, Naomi Osaka thought it was going to be her, but she's had some, you know, now she's going to be taking a step back. She won in 2018, and then she didn't win again until recently, a couple of more majors. That it's completely open on the women's side. On the men's side, it's Joker right now. I think he's going for is into the Grand Slam sweep if he can do it this week. But he's getting up there in age. You know, I think with Federer and Nadal, I don't want to say we're past them, like that they're done. Let's count them out. You never count them fully out. But we're kind of at the end of them. And Joker, I don't know how much more he's going to have left. Who's going to be the next tennis players to take that step up? Medvedev would be one of the guys you'd be looking at, and Felix is going up against Medvedev. So we'll see how they match up. But it's open there. And you could see Felix or Dennis being two of those guys that are going to take that next step and be part of that group at the top when it comes to running tennis. I have to read one text. I know some people say we read too much of the negative text, but I do have to read one here quickly. But Chris Everett and MJ were calling her in terms of Layla to beat the number 2 during the second women's quarterfinal last night. She's a beast. That comes from Jason Leduc.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the tennis too is like when you got Chris Everett commenting on things. She's got a resume to talk about these things. That it is absolutely fantastic. But one person was mad that we talked quite a bit of tennis in that first, or quite a bit of soccer in that first hour. And I said we did talk U.S. Open, we did talk F1, we talked other things.
Like, just stop.
Well, and then the response. So 10 minutes on the greatest achievement in Canadian tennis history and 30 minutes on soccer seems fair to me. Well, and I want to address this one publicly in that we did a lot of tennis yesterday. We will do a lot of tennis over the next couple of days when it comes to Layla Phoenix. Canada's playing tonight. Layla and Felix are not on the court tonight. Also, why is this the greatest achievement in Canadian tennis history? Bianca won in 2019 is the greatest achievement.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is it because
we have two at the same time?
Well, how old was Bianca when she won?
She would have been 19.
So
she's 21.
I'm a little confused by that as well. Like,
it's
because there's two in the semifinals.
Maybe that's where it is. But we had Bianca go win this. This is a great achievement. I'm not going to try to diminish that. Trust me. I know how great of an achievement this is. But it's not the greatest in Canadian tennis history right now because Bianca was the first to do it, and she did it in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're the first Canadians to ever make it to a semifinal or anything like that. So don't tell me that this is the greatest achievement. It's an amazing achievement. It is a great achievement. But, also we've talked more U.S. Open on this show than I think most on this station have. I'm just going to throw that out there. He's Hernan Salas. I'm Matthew Wannick. When we come back, we'll continue in the inbox at 10, 12, 60. Some more texts coming in on the Canadian Football League. We'll also keep talking U.S. Open and get you set for Canada, El Salvador later tonight, 5:30 in their World Cup qualifying. He's Hernan Salas. I'm Matthew Wannick. This is the Dave Jamieson Show on Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260. 143. Welcome back to the Dave Jamieson Show. Matt Wannick and Hernan Salas with you here on this Wednesday. Coming up just after 2 o'clock, Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers from Sherwood Park, Alberta. He'll be on with Gregor. Connor and I were just talking. He was just reading that it seems like Chuba's going to be the returner for the Panthers. It'll be interesting to watch him. I guess he did in his freshman year and his sophomore year with the Cowboys in college. I don't recall him being a kick returner, so I'll be intrigued to see how he does when he takes to the field this weekend with the Carolina Panthers. 10-12-60 is how you can get in touch with the show. Canada continues its quest to qualify for the 2022 World Cup tonight, 5:30 kickoff out in Toronto as they will take on El Salvador. Want to get some text coming in on the CFL, and we had Glenn Suter on who pointed out that 985,000 people watched Bombers Riders on Sunday. He also doesn't think that this league will be a 40,000 seat or 40,000 attendance league again. But this comes from a Spruce Grove at Chad. The eyes on the Labor Day game for the Riders was 750,000 people from Saskatchewan, I'll bet. The eyes on the three biggest markets are abysmal. That's where the CFL's in big trouble, not Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Again, Spruce Grove, Chad, go Bombers, go. And I don't know if that's necessarily true because I remember, at least through the first 3 weeks of the season, every time we talked about those games, we talked about, or the ratings or it came out, it was an improvement. It was better ratings than at the same weeks in 2019. And in those early games, the East teams weren't home. So they were watching, and we saw the improvement. We saw those people watching. I remember having James Duthie on the show a few years back, and he mentioned that locally in Toronto, actually, the Argos do get a good viewership. Argos games actually get a lot of people watching from the GTA. It's just getting people to the game. It doesn't happen. Hey, guys, I can still remember driving to Red Deer or Calgary to watch the Western Final or Semi on TV. Commonwealth was virtually sold out, and the games had local blackout. This was during the 5-in-a-row run. Many fond memories, particularly the year we decided to drive all the way to Banff to watch the game. TV reception sucked, but it was Banff. Good times. Phil from Den in Bearspaw. Hey, guys, Elks missed the playoffs for the first time in 35 years, and the salary cap came at the same time in 2006. That was the same time Saskatchewan's attendance went up, that coming in from Farm Boy. One of the reasons Saskatchewan's attendances went up in that time, and this is I learned from Lieutenant Eric and his brother Lucas too, was it was the Roy Shiver era, and they really embraced like the attitude. That's when the black jerseys came out for the Rough Riders, and they wanted to be the bad boys, and it really appealed to a lot of people, and that's what brought the Riders back. Because prior to that, that was when they had to do the telethon, and they were trying to get people, and you know they were in real trouble. But then Roy Shivers came in, and he turned things around. He made it cool. To be a Rider fan and go to Rider games, he made it cool again. And that's what happened somewhat there. And now they're the team. They're the big franchise in the Canadian Football League and no longer the Edmonton Elks, which is a little sad. Elks were always the evil empire. It was great. Under Hugh. So, Canada today, no Alphonso Davies. I'm expecting Jonathan David to get the start with Kyle Larin. That didn't happen against the United States. I'm expecting Tajon Buchanan to replace Alphonso Davies on that left side. Is it just important to get the win, Hernan? Or for a team that hasn't exactly put up the most amount of goals in recent play, is it important to put up a few goals?
Definitely. I mean, clean sheet, all that. And that's the thing where I'm looking at this game, Matt, and I think it's going to be similar to that first game. I think El Salvador is going to look for the counters. They're going to sit back, like Canada kind of build, and then just hold them off and collapse everybody into that 18. So Canada's going to have to be patient. They get a good opportunity like they've had in the first game. They have to bury them. And then I just hope that if Canada does take a lead in this game, they don't sit back. You got to keep going because sitting back never works. It's not their strength defensively either. So for me, it's going to be interesting because he used two different formations in the first two games. I like the second one he used against the U.S. I thought it was more aggressive. And you're at home. Go for the win. Don't look for a draw. Now, worst case scenario is a draw. You'll take it. You'll take the point because you can't come out of this game with 0 points. But I want to see an aggressive and go with the 3-4-3 or whatever they use, any way you want to put it, right? So I like that formation more, and Buchanan's probably going to start. We'll see if Hoylett starts again. I think David should start, and I think he needs to pick up his game. But it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what John Herdman does here with this formation for this game.
I like the players that they used to start on Thursday better than what I saw on Sunday. But I like their formation that they used on Sunday than the players, because you starting with Jonathan David and Tajon Buchanan on the bench. I didn't like that. I'd rather have those guys on because they're better players. I don't want them as subs. I want them as starters. Yeah. But we'll see what John Herdman does with that. I think one of the reasons, though, that those two guys specifically didn't, and I'll actually even throw Atiba Hutchinson because he didn't start on Sunday as well. I think it was out of rest to get them ready for today's game. So I wouldn't expect Mark Anthony Kaye to be starting. I don't know about Jonathan Osorio. He might get the start because of Davies not being around and going back to Germany. You need that extra midfielder, so I think we might see him get the start. But the one thing I will say through 2 matches, I'm pretty impressed with the defense and the back line and goaltending for Canada. That was the thing that I had my question marks. But so far, I think through 2 matches, they've looked really well. They've looked pretty good, and they've against the U.S. on Sunday, they withheld a couple of moments. They did their job and they held well. So I'm with you. I think El Salvador will go for the counters today. But that means you're going to have the ball and you're going to be able to attack. Question is Canada have the finish? Will they have that finish to get the goals to take the 3 points? Because they need those 3 points. Calgary's finally getting an updated stadium that gives CFL 9 very new stadiums. They're in solid shape. A Canadian QB would super help the sport. When's Calgary getting the stadium? That's been postponed. I don't think that all Calgary's getting a stadium. There was initially that whole, what was it called? The One Next project or something like that in Calgary that was the stadium with the rink. Now they're just focusing on the rink. Maybe I missed it, but I don't believe Calgary's getting any sort of stadium update anytime soon. They need one. I'll say McMahon Stadium's a great spot to watch a game when it comes to sightlines. Sightlines, Connor, sightlines. The stadium itself is just garbage. You don't like that? You don't like the sightlines there, Connor? He's shaking his head. JMO and I both, I think with the way that the seats are and how steep it is, that you're pretty close to the action. I like their sightlines that they have at McMahon. Have you been to a game at McMahon?
I have not, so I can't comment on that. But yeah, I don't know. That stadium just looks.
It's trash.
Yeah,
it's
I didn't
utter
want to
trash.
say it, but you said it.
Oh, I'll gladly say Saddle Dome's trash too. Both of them are trash. And one of the things I'm disappointed that they're replacing the Saddle Dome because I love the fact that all the concerts come to Edmonton and they don't go to Calgary. That's something I love. Yeah. And then they have to come. There's been many concerts where I know people coming from Calgary up to Edmonton because they want to go see the show. And great for us. Great, our economy. They'll stay at a hotel, all that stuff. They use Rogers Place. I love the fact that we have Rogers Place and they have the Saddle Dome. Now they're trying to build the new stadium, the new rink down there, and that's getting closer to, I don't know if shovels are in the ground as of yet. So that's going to change for us a bit. But I always liked that over the years. Andrew the Mailman, no, it's approved. A stadium? Really? I'm going to have to go look into that. I didn't think a stadium was approved in Calgary.
This just coming in from Wes Gilbertson. It's not huge news, but
Calgary Flames reporter with the Post Media.
Yeah, Flames have signed Brad Richardson, 36-year-old, who won a cup with the Darryl Sutter coach team in 2012. Probably fourth line guy there, extra guy, penalty kill. Just thought I'd throw that Flames news in there.
I don't think Oiler fans care about any signing in hockey right now unless you're starting with Kyler Yamamoto.
Yeah, we haven't touched on. Well, there's really nothing to touch on. There's no news, and I know I heard Struddy, I think, talking about it. Like, this guy, he can't afford to miss training camp.
No, but training camp's still a bit away.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm personally I don't care. I'm not worried because we're still not at training camp yet. And to me, I care about when they get to training camp, which rookies next week. I don't know when main camp fully opens. I'm guessing 18th, 19th or something like that. If next Thursday, Friday, we don't see Yamamoto with a contract, then I'll start worrying more.
Yeah.
Until then, it is what it is. I'm assuming Holland has things figured out. Or, he knows where he is, and Yamamoto knows where he is. And I think Yamamoto would have to know he can't afford to miss training camp. That right spot, that second line right spot's, it's his to start.
For now.
It's his to lose, but he can still lose it in training camp. And if you're not at camp, well, you give a chance to a guy like a Zach Cassian or Josh Archibald or someone to take over that role. So I fully expect Yamamoto to be there.
There's more depth now, so the little guy's got to get signed up and get into camp and see if they can find that magic he had with Draisaitl and Danuge. If that's where Dave Tippett wants to go, I don't know.
So I got a link from September 3rd. Master plan for a makeover of Foothills Athletic Park gets council committee approval, which would be at McMahon Stadium. It still needs council approval. We'll see how that goes. I'd like to thank our guests today. Tristan Demore, a sports journalist of the Scrum Podcast. He helped us talk Canada El Salvador kickoff just after 5:30. Glenn Suter of TSN. He helped us talk some Canadian Football League. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and texting into the show. Coming up next, it is the Jason Gregor Show with Struds and Halley. Chuba Hubbard at 2 o'clock. Christian Covington, defensive tackle with the Chargers. He's up at 5 o'clock. A busy show coming up next. On behalf of Hernan Salas, I'm Matthew Wanek. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow, and go Canada.